there's two options. You could either attract them or you can create them. So what we did was both. So not only other people who are along the way who kind of have a little bit of traction want to come to us because we're like attracting them, we're giving them resources. You know, we're not thinking about us, we're thinking about them.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, and welcome back, or maybe it's your first time with us. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. You may or may not be aware, this is the show where I get to have weekly conversations with some of the best and brightest, what I call entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors and segments of society and industry, as we come together to try to understand, one, how to navigate this complicated world that we live in, and two, ideally, how to leave this world that we live in maybe a little bit better than we found it. And today, I'm super excited to be joined by this young, up-and-coming venture capitalist, Justis Mendez, co-founder and managing partner at OneSixOne Ventures. For those that are longtime listeners or alumni guests of the show, this is another one of those great moments for me as a host where this is a guest that was referred to us by another former alumnus of the show. So like everybody in the community is making my job easy, helping me find the great, fascinating, interesting people to talk to about the stuff that I love to talk about. So let me tell you a little bit about Justis first before we welcome him to the show. What caught my attention about him wasn't simply that he's this kind of young, up-and-coming Latino venture capitalist in a world that, in my opinion, is far too dominated by middle-aged white dudes who look and sound like me from the same 4 or 5 universities. It's really, to me, what grabbed my attention was that he spent years building something that a lot of people talk about, but very few people know how to create, which is meaningful communities. So in his early career, across his early career, he learned how to build relationships across both a few projects as a founder and a creator, as well as in various business development and sales roles in his early days as an employee. And this context, I think, provided him the foundation that then he and his partner Pablo later would use to build out OneSixOne. And they've used it to their advantage in very unique ways to help build wide-ranging and deep relationships now with investors, executives, and entrepreneurs across the country. Through hundreds of curated events, bringing together founders, investors, operators, and executives, Justis and Pablo have developed a unique perspective on how relationships become opportunities, how ideas become companies, and how the right room with the right people in it can change someone's entire trajectory in their lives. They've risen quickly to become 2 of the youngest and most well-known Hispanic venture investors in the industry. But today we're going to go beyond venture capital. We're going to explore how networks are built, how trust is earned, and what happens when you very intentionally create environments where ambitious people can collide. And so I'm super excited to welcome Justis. Justis, welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers, buddy.
Thank you for having me. And what a great introduction. You did amazing.
No, my pleasure. It's fun. It's fun to talk about the fascinating things that you all do with your lives when I get to sit here and visit with you once a week. So grateful for your story, which I'm now super eager to find out much, much more about, because it is a very, in this industry that we're talking about that you work in now, at least in one part of your life, it is a very, let's call it non-traditional story. And that to me is kind of the hallmark of entrepreneurial thinking, right? Is being able to navigate your way forward in the world that we live in from less than necessarily ideal or less than traditional routes and thought patterns. So I'm super excited to kind of unpack all that with you today. So thank you for being here again. I've got one kind of opening question before we really dive into your background and the rest of your story. Do you think that founders, entrepreneurs nowadays, like really have to learn how to be storytellers? And
Absolutely.
Why so?
Yeah, I think right now, especially with everything going online, I think that people's attention spans have never been shorter, right? If you look at movie cuts, like traditionally, like if you watch a movie from the 1990s, the second per cut in between frames is a lot more drawn out and dragged out. If you look at Mr. Beast, I believe it's like every 3 seconds is another cut scene. So we've just been trained to be able to have like these shorter attention spans where you have to be able to captivate people's like attentions immediately. So I think like right now has never been more important to be able to tell a great story.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I am a storyteller, so I'm biased, but long before I was, way back when I was your age, and I was the first 10 years of my career, and I was an employee, and I was a sales and business development guy. My dad taught me that. He didn't call it storytelling then, right? He called it relationship building and sales and all that, but it was now what we call storytelling. So I think it's always been universally true, and it's great to see people finding so many different mediums to use to tell their stories.
I actually talk about that a lot, actually, to young founders as well, and founders of all ages, actually, is that like since the beginning of time, information was spread through storytelling, like even since the caveman days, right? So like biologically, that's how we understand information is through storytelling.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. And by the way, you are the first person in the 6-year history of this podcast to frame me as a caveman. So that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm teasing you. You didn't do that. That was just too easy of a joke. That was obvious. You set a softball up there for me right away. All right, let's get into this because you've got a fascinating story. So as I understand it in my research for this conversation, when you and Pablo were essentially hosting kind of meetups, you created these meetups at the University of Florida, go Gators. You weren't trying to build a venture fund, right? I mean, you were trying to, as I read it, like you were trying to solve kind of a community problem of talent, like smart, young, aspirational people who were leaving the region, right? And so I'm curious, like in that journey, like at what point did you realize that you weren't just building like an events business, but that you were really building an ecosystem, probably long before you ever realized you were building a potential venture fund?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, I mean, a couple like very known knowns as like people start to get funding, right? So like people are just like meeting people and being like, hey, I'm making money. We have a mentor. His name is Martin Schaffel. He's a professor still at the University of Florida, $500 million exit. Now that company is publicly traded. And he was 100% equity shareholder, that's a massive cash out deal. And he said there's 3 stages to life: learning, earning, and returning. Somebody asked a really great question. One of the best questions. Student raises his hand, goes, when do I go from learning to earning? I'm like, that's a great question, right? Everybody's trying to figure out how do we make money. So this whole entire process of us building what is now OneSixOne Ventures, we were learning, right? And once people came to us saying, hey, I will pay you for what you know, that was his answer. He said, once people are willing to pay you for what you know, now it's time to go on to the earning part.
Okay.
And he said the third part is returning. Now, the good thing about what we're doing right now is it's insane. Very early in our career, we're able to do all 3 at the same time. I'm consistently learning. I have the ability to earn. And more importantly, through the community that we've built through education, community, and capital, which is the 3 pillars of OneSixOne Ventures, we're able to return.
Where does and I'm not going to harp on this like age thing, because I'm not one that necessarily believes that age determines one's ability to do anything, good or bad. Right. I'm out here at 58 years old, reinventing myself in this way, doing these types of things. And you're at the other end of the spectrum in our lifespan, doing the things that you're doing. But I am curious about this, like in that journey, in that arc of that story, those 3 things, where does the confidence come from? Right? Like where does and this is probably just about you, not necessarily about like you and Pablo and what you saw as the business, but like just in it, when you look up in the mirror, I know now looking back, I remember that my first startup, I was 28, 29 to 32, right? So I was like 28 to 32. And at the time I felt like I knew everything that there was to know. And I felt like I was unstoppable. And that's probably what gave me the ability to try to do the things that I did and take the risks that I did. But looking back now, I realize like I didn't know shit. Like
right.
I was like a walking idiot. And back then in a shirt and tie. Right. So just on a personal level for you, like, was it great mentors? Like the professor at Florida, like what gave you, Justis, the like confidence to say, we can build this next level of this. We can build this next level of this and just keep going to where you're now sitting in San Francisco at the heart of it all today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I would say the main foundation and behind all of it is actually anger, to be completely honest with you.
Okay.
So
talk to us about that.
Yeah. Sounds insane, right? So, so all these smart people heard about like, metallurgy and alchemy and all these other things, right? And it said like, oh, they could turn lead into gold. So that was, that's called like an allegory. It doesn't really mean like you could turn lead into gold. It's talking about like how man could transmutate himself into something higher. And one thing that I try and do that I found out at an early age is being able to transmute my energy. So
Hmm.
like I took all of that anger. I was very angry as a kid. Like I grew up like single mom, all poor, like got kidnapped at 14. I got robbed multiple times. My cousin got murdered at the top of my street. My aunt killed herself. My friend went to prison for 10 years, my best friend. And I was just like, I was fed up with it. And I'm just like, you know what? Like I'm so angry, but instead, why don't I turn this into just like a form of confidence where I'm just like, I don't care what other people think about me.
Hmm.
I know that no matter what, as long as I become 1% better each and every day in every single way, I'm going to be able to succeed. And I'm also going to go after things that other people won't be willing to go after because I don't care. I said to myself, look, either I live the next year trying to chase my dreams or I die right now. Like, I don't care. I'd rather die than just live here and live this horrible existence that I'm living because I felt trapped at 16. So like, that's where a lot of the confidence comes from is honestly just like transmuting my anger and being like, I don't care if anybody like doesn't believe in me. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to go after this. Then obviously like being able to be a little bit more competent helps obviously with a little bit more. So like having the mentors, having the reps, having the repetitions, meeting
Yeah.
people, having these types of things that brings like a different form of like that top layer of confidence. But it all comes from me just being like, I'm going to go after this and I don't care who's in my way. I'm going to go after it.
I almost like I have to ask at 16, that kid, that version of Justis, right?
Yeah.
Amidst all that trauma, right? And I'm sure a ton of love from some of the people involved, but also like a ton of selfishness and ignorance from other people involved. Was there one person? Was there a friend, a mentor, somebody at school, a coach, an uncle, an aunt, somebody that was like that one light that shone a little bit of a path for you that you said like, okay, if I can, I'm pissed. Fuck this. I'm going to channel this anger into being a better version of myself because I see this example that I don't want to be. And he or she kind of gives me a hope that maybe I could get out and get to the other side. Was there one person like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like my biggest like shining lights were my grandparents actually growing up. Like my
Awesome.
grandfather came here at 19 with 10 cents, ended up being able to, buy a home and build a family and, do everything. And that was the first time I felt unconditional love was through my grandparents. And they're just
That's
amazing
awesome.
people. Like they got me into church, made sure that I knew who God was and had a relationship with him. Aside from that, but they were always, they were always, they were never rich people. So for me going into like the business side of things, like, and that's why I tell kids like, dude, just go on YouTube. Like there's so much information on the internet and like, it's your fault if you're not out there learning.
We do
Because there's so
not
much
live.
out there.
Yeah, we do not have a shortage of information problem. We
100%.
might have a sorting.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Plain Text Capital. Investing in Web3 and cryptocurrencies isn't about jumping on the latest trends. It's about understanding where the market is headed and why. Plain Text Capital is a digital asset investment firm focused on long-term strategies backed by deep research, backing the best Web3 companies and protocols, and investing in the newest asset classes of the future. They believe that Web3 crypto will drive digital innovation for decades to come, creating significant value for investors. In fact, their team of highly skilled professionals work with institutions and serious individual investors who want clarity in a space full of hype and noise. So if you're looking to cut through the chaos and invest with purpose, Plain Text Capital brings a disciplined, high-conviction approach to investing. You can learn more and meet the team at plaintextcapital.com.
Sorting through information problem,
Yeah.
right? But we don't have a shortage of access to knowledge and access to wisdom and access to experiences. We may sadly have a shortage of access to good people problem, but again, like in real life, but on the as you say on the internet, that's a great story. And by the way, thanks for the shout out to your grandparents because I just became a granddad. For the first time, so he's about 20.
People.
He's about 20 months old now, and now my daughter, who lives here in LA near me, is actually pregnant with grandbaby number 2, which is coming here not too many more weeks. But so yeah, and I'm already learning that as much as I love being a dad to her, that being a grandfather may be the greatest job ever.
I see that now. My mom is a grandmother, and I see that too. So another person that sounds pretty crazy, but like when I was, and I'm always very candid and transparent. Like that's
Yeah.
why, like I am who I am, and if people don't like it, like whatever. But when I was younger, I sold drugs, right?
Yep.
And when I was 16, there was this guy who I always looked up to, who was like the big guy, and he was like, "Yo, you're not allowed to sell drugs anymore." And I was like heartbroken, like, why? And he said, "You're the only one smart enough to get out of here."
Love that.
And he still let his son sell drugs. He was like, "But not you." He was like, "You're going to get out of here, and you're the only one smart enough to do it." And at that point, at first, I was like heartbroken. Now becoming a man and stepping into my life, I'm just like, wow, that guy saved my life. And he believed in me before I believed in myself.
100%.
So it's just like there's a bunch of little people here and there who poured into me. One of my favorite quotes is, "There's no such thing as a self-made man. We're the amalgamation of all the great people who gave us kind words and words of encouragement and helped us out here and there." Absolutely. So like there's so many people who just like helped me get here. Now I couldn't have done it by myself.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. And by the way, I'll validate that and throw you a little bit of a bone back so you realize you're never alone in this world. Is you are now the second of the 220 guests that have been on the show, the second who was kidnapped at 14.
Wow.
So there's a story for another day. I've got to connect you. I've got to connect you and the unstoppable Iram Altamirino. That's an incredible story in and of itself. But all right, so let's talk about this. That's everything you just shared is the most natural segue to this whole idea of community, right? And the power of community. One of the things I find as an outsider and someone who raised venture capital for businesses my own in a past life, right? Most investors spend all their time trying to find the next great company, right? And everything that you guys were doing with OneSixOne in its early days was really about building the conditions, the community, the environments where those great companies could just present themselves. Do you think it's more important to create the conditions or to just spend all your time hunting the great company?
Yeah, create the conditions. There's a few reasons why. Like, let's assume, because most people aren't, let's assume you're not Mark Andreessen. Let's assume that you're not Alfred Litt at Sequoia, right?
It's a fairly good assumption.
Even if you do search, right? And that's what you chase runs away from you to begin with, right? But like, let's say you do search and let's say you do find it. Why would they want to take your money? Right. So it's just like at the end of the day, you can search to the end of the earth. You might find it. They're like, okay, what's your check size? Who are you? What's your name? Like, I'm just taking a check from A16Z, take one from Sequoia, call it a day. Yeah. You know, the CEO, then I'll take one from Elon Musk. So I believe that like there's two options. You could either attract them or you can create them. So what we did was both. We created a watering hole. We created a community. We created an educational platform. We created all these things. So not only other people who are along the way who kind of have a little bit of traction want to come to us because we're like attracting them, we're giving them resources. You know, we're not thinking about us, we're thinking about them. And then on top of that, through some of the programs that we built, like the startup launch competition, which is literally like week 1, we're helping you ideate. Week 2, we're coming up with an MVP. Week 3, we're out there helping you close customers, right? Like then we're also creating on top of that. So it's like, you know, people are wondering, where's all the good deal flow? We're like, hey, we create deal flow. We create opportunity. You know, I believe that genius is distributed, but opportunity is not.
100%
so we want to come to these markets and we want to help people be able to launch their companies. And then, you know, maybe the first one falls flat on its face, but the next one they call us, they're like, hey, I think I got something special. We'll forever be remembered as their first call after that.
Love that. Long-term relationships, not transactions.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
100%.
All right. So this is your commercial. Tell us the OneSixOne story. Like, tell us what it is today. We've talked about some of the origin story now already, but talk to us about like what it is today. You mentioned the 3 things that were kind of in the pitch. I could hear it before in one of your answers. Right. So give us that whole pitch again. Tell us the business model, all the profiles, all that good stuff.
Yeah. What we build is a 0 to 1 engine for early stage founders, helping connect them with capital, customers, and early stage hiring. And we do that through our IRL platform. Last year, we hosted 75 events across 13 different cities, Fortune 500 executives, exited founders, large scale investors, AI researchers. So this is basically everything that founders need. They're like, how do I raise the right capital? How do I find the right customers, right? More than 50% of enterprise deals are done through in real life community, like, you know, relationships and connections. And then also hiring, right? Everybody's now this whole entire digital infrastructure where they're using AI to hire people. Like, what if you hate this person? You know, it's like the old, it's like the old test.
The algorithm isn't going to be the manager. You're going to be the manager. Sure, so you better 100%. Know this person.
Yeah. Especially when you're super early, like resumes don't teach you anything about culture. And that's like such an important part. Like you want to be able to, it's like that always rule of thumb, like, hey, would you want a 6-hour layover in an airport lounge with this person? Would you invite them to your family, Thanksgiving dinner? Especially with your first 5 hires, that answer better be yes.
Right.
If not, you're creating a horrible company culture because it's all top down, especially at that early stage. So what we're really trying to do is help people navigate that in real life community, closing customers, capital, and early stage hiring.
So do we view it as like all in one thing, or do we view it as like there's a venture fund business over here and then there's this services business over here?
That's a really great question. We actually did separate the two.
Okay.
So we have a traditional venture capital fund, but we run it all under one name and one umbrella. Yeah. But we do have a completely different events company. Because we actually did have an LP reach out to us and he's just like, hey, by the way, how much are these events costing me? And I'm like,
of course.
Good part about it, it's a profitable business that's completely separate than the fund and it's not costing LPs anything. But it basically, it allows us to be able to go out there, create goodwill, create this compound effect. And it helps us with finding new deal flow, helps us with finding experts in due diligence that help us, meet these companies. And then obviously they could move the needle for the company. So even through the diligence calls, we'll bring in potential high-level customers, Fortune 500 executives, large-scale, executives. And like halfway through some of the meetings, they're like, hey, I'll use you as a customer. And then like the founders are super happy. They're like, you did more for me than like all these big tier 1, 2 funds, just on my diligence call.
I want you to talk about this a little bit. I mean, this is I'm a born and bred salesman, right? I'm a born and bred relationship guy. That's literally what my dad was. That's what he taught me to be. That's what I am. And so I'm fascinated by this. When I was reading it in the materials, I was like, oh, wait, I want to pull on this, right? And now you've said it multiple times just in 20 minutes or so. This idea that you guys are actively helping pre-portfolio companies and then your early portfolio companies to go out and find and close their first customers. Like, talk about that part of this.
Yeah. So one of my favorite case studies is actually, it's in our deck. There's a company called Hedgehog. So it's like an open networking company. They work in between like companies in the data center. And, we hosted an event up in Seattle, which is the cloud capital of the world. And so this is where it comes all the way from diligence to customers, post-investment value creation, like all of it all in one, just singular event as a case study. So we hosted an event in Seattle. We had an investor by the name of Kirby Winfield. His fund is called Ascend, most active VC in the Pacific Northwest. He came, he spoke. He goes, hey, I love the community that you guys are building. There were some amazing people here. Would love to have you guys take a little bit of this last round in a really hot deal that I'm doing. Okay. So we hop on, we meet the founder. He was at a couple of big companies, him and his co-founders before this. The company sold for, $800 million plus and to Cisco. And then we were like, okay, well, this is a highly technical product and I want to get a little bit more product feedback. So we brought in one of the other attendees at the event, who was the former CIO of T-Mobile. He hops on the call. Halfway through the call, he goes, hey, I want to come direct on the cap table. I want to invest personally. Is that okay? I said, absolutely. Let's co-invest next to each other. Yeah. And then he went out, closed T-Mobile. Now that's a 7-figure contract. Now they're going to close the year at about $8 million or so ARR. And we got in pre-revenue.
I mean, that is so, by the way, it's ironic too. Like, again, as an old guy who's been around for a long time, it's ironic to think that people, not you guys, but like that people in general in the venture world or in the early startup world would, and they always have, I can tell you this from before you were born, literally they have always put kind of the customer acquisition sales as like the last thing that they get to. Right. Like everybody puts all this energy into everything else leading to that. And then this, you've seen it, I'm sure already. I've seen it literally repeated decade after decade after decade for the last 35 years, is like the number of times that then companies crash out, early stage companies crash out because they've got everything else, but they literally never understood how to go out and either sell it or how to be able to close it, or they just had bad timing in the market, and they never get to those first few critical customers. So to come along, and I love, this is me like proud uncle / dad, grandpa moment, like, I love that it's you guys, like a couple of young guys who have come along and gone like, almost like, isn't this what, like, shouldn't somebody be talking about these guys, helping these guys sell something? Like the thing that they're building, like should like how come no one's helping them sell? And you guys are like, we should help them sell.
Right, for sure. I'm not gonna lie. I think in the first like call or two, older than us is probably like, who the fuck are these two kids over here talking to me?
No, right, but that's why I say, like, back to the original comment I made, 5 or 10 minutes ago. Like, I don't care about 8. Like, it doesn't matter, because the truth is, all you guys have done, either, and I say this totally respectfully and lovingly, like either through just sheer intuition or ignorance, like you have stumbled into a truth that has been universally true for the last 100 years, right? And before we used startup as a language or high tech or venture, like the ability to build a business to convince someone to pay you for it, that thing that you're building, right? And then convince the next person to do it. And then have this person that was the first person to help you convince the third person to do it. Like that is literally just truth, right? And so I love that it is a couple of young guys who've come along, kind of shaken things up a bit, gone, hey, fellas, like this whole game does not end the minute that they raise the round. And then you guys just go back to chasing your next portfolio investment, and they're stuck in their fancy new office building, spending your money going, well, shit, now how do we sell it? Right. Like, and that's too much of the startup world, in my humble opinion, with some space, with some distance from it now. Like I look at it and I'm like, too much of it is just about the capital chase, the capital acquisition, and then maybe the hiring. And then that's it. And then the reason that most of them fail aren't those things. It's because no one sells something to somebody.
100%. Vanity metrics. They're looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, I met some founder and he goes, I've raised all this amount. I'm just like, oh, what's your revenue? How much have you sold?
Right.
I don't care how much you raised. That just means that you gave away your company.
If you and I open up a taco truck, we're not like bragging about how many millions of followers we have. We're literally every day tabbing up how many tacos we sold or didn't sell, and how much our food cost. And then maybe we should move the taco truck to a different neighborhood to try and sell over there. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's business. That's it. Those people are as entrepreneurial as the people we're talking about that come out of Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard. I love that. Okay. On the fund size, just breaking these things apart for a second. So on the fund size specifically, is there a narrow thesis? Are there specific industries? Talk to me about how you're profiling the people that you want to invest in.
Yeah. So, fund 2 will be a lot more generalist. Fund 1 was, a few main sectors. So infrastructure for AI and cloud. We did, probably about 5 to 7 dual use companies. So things that sell to the government and enterprise. Okay. And then, so a little bit of deep tech, and then, enterprise software. Things are changing so fast right now. And there's so much opportunity everywhere. We want to be, generally agnostic. Yeah. We do still really love the infrastructure space. We do really love deep tech still.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is kind of like, okay, forecaster, like what's coming? Like what industries are not hot, but like what industries are meaningful? Like what industries are really going to affect change over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think that energy has never been more important. Right?
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Haney and Company. We all know that in today's complex financial landscape, having a trusted advisor can make all the difference. Since 1960, Haney and Company has been providing comprehensive accounting services to a diverse range of clients, from small businesses to large corporations. With nearly 400 professionals across 13 locations, they offer services in tax, audit, business consulting, and client advisory. In fact, their commitment to excellence has earned them recognition from Accounting Today and Forbes magazines. At Haney and Company, though, it's not just about balancing books. It's about building lasting relationships based on trust and mutual growth. So visit HaneyCPAs.com. That's HaneyCPAs.com to learn how they can support your business's financial journey.
More important right now, and right now we're really trying to compete at a really high level, and our grid and the way that we're producing energy is just so much farther behind a country like China, for example.
Sure.
So I mean, that's the good thing about all these different things, is they can be businesses when they're in their own respect, but they also could help the world, right? Like, and it's a national security issue. Like, we need to be able to have energy. Like, that's number one. So yeah, there's a bunch of different sectors that I'm super interested in. I think
You mentioned deep tech, hard sciences, those types of things.
100%. I think from like a security standpoint, like we just invested in a company that's actually like making sure that everything's happening, like monitoring what's happening in space right now. There's
Okay.
like a big satellite race right now, ensuring satellites, making sure that people aren't becoming bad actors. Like I think Russia and there was another country that is literally like having these satellites come out and attack other satellites. So imagine me and you are on a call right now. Boom, everything just drops.
Yeah, and it wasn't Riverside Software's fault.
And it was a Riverside topic for once.
No, yeah, and that from what I'm learning, and some of the folks we've had on the show in this last year in particular, we've got a really burgeoning community of a lot of those things that you just mentioned down here in Southern California. Right down here outside of LA, which is not surprising to me. Again, old school guy, like because Southern California from 1940 to the 1970s, 80s was the hub of the defense technology. What they didn't call it defense tech, but it was the defense industry back then, right? And the aerospace industry, and then it went dormant, obviously, and now it's had this resurgence where all the young guys and
El Segundo.
Women, right? Yeah, I mean that's like one neighborhood, but like it's all over the place, right? I mean it's spread across those sectors. We had someone on the show, Roxanne Aragon, recently, who works with this organization called DTI, and they're literally they're facilitating that, right? And they're facilitating relationships with the government, the Department of Defense, and all the different military agencies, et cetera, et cetera. And it's fascinating, right? I mean, it's because, as you said, it's literally it's this unique confluence of technology and software and hardware and science with national interest and all those other things as well, which is fascinating. It's got to be amazing to have. There must be unlimited opportunities for guys like you.
Unlimited opportunities. It's fun.
It's incredible. All right, so let's go back. Right, like you saw talented people leaving Florida.
Yeah.
Right, and now here you are. You've traveled. You've worked the country. You've hosted events. You kind of made your community mobile in that sense, right? Like you're almost like geography agnostic. It sounds like, I mean, you've moved to the Bay Area. That makes sense. But like, obviously you're doing events. You just referenced the Seattle story, which is a great example, right? There's so much innovation and creativity in so many different cities and towns all across the country attached to so many different universities. What have you learned going from the kid who was doing this in Florida, just trying to keep people from leaving Gainesville and moving to Atlanta or Charlotte, right? Or New York? Like, what have you learned about how, like, the difference between places that create entrepreneurial talent and like places that like figure out how to keep it?
There's levels to it. That's for sure. That's like the number one thing that I've learned. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like whole different levels to all of this.
Yeah.
I think that we're okay. And this is true about people in general, right? Like this is true about refugees. This is true about startups, is that people go to where there's opportunity.
100%.
And unless you create opportunity for people, they're not going to go there. So that's like one thing that I was always angry about. Like, and in a place like Gainesville, Florida has even more opportunity sometimes than in a place like Cleveland, Ohio, where I was originally grew up.
Yeah.
And they're changing that now. They're trying to. The mayor's office, they're doing a great job, all these other things. But you know, people will go to where there's opportunity. And there's a few different things that I try and like stack against any ecosystem. So like number one is the capital issue, right? Like people traditionally go to where the money's at. Like that's like number one.
Yep.
Number two, people go to where there's resources. So like the non-tangible, like cash, but like, hey, is there pro bono, you know, lawyers? Is there like, you know, all these like little, is there tax subsidies so that, you know, like I know Miami was doing a bunch that were just like, hey, if you want to come out here, I'll give you like subsidized, you know, rent and all these other things. Another thing is community. People need community without a doubt. People gravitate towards meeting other like-minded individuals, people that they can be like, hey, I can go out and learn from. And if I have a hard time, I can go out and ask a couple questions. And then the last is like trajectory. People want to go to where there's like a high trajectory of like it's going up. People don't want to go like, let's say there's some capital, but it's always dwindling. Like people see the writing on the wall. So people want to go towards where they think that things are going to continuously get better.
Yeah.
And that was like what Miami was selling their whole entire dream on. It's just like, hey, now we're like this.
Pretty
Imagine what we're going to be in the next 10 years. And they did an amazing job at selling that. Like, you know, and I still love Miami for a lot of it. But I mean, dude, San Francisco's just a whole different ball game.
It always was. It always will be.
100%.
I used to say during
100%.
during that peak of like the 2020, 2021 bubble stuff, which when like, and I, no offense, I've got some good friends in Miami, but I'm a pragmatist, right? And it's the whole like, we're going to take down Miami. I'm like, dude, don't even, that's like ridiculous. That's, you don't like, that's not even, and I'm not even like defending the Bay Area. I'm just simply saying like,
it's undeniably.
Your region produces like $1.5 billion of venture capital investment per year. They produce 128 million. Like, it's just not like, that's not like, say you're aiming to take down Philadelphia or Charlotte. Like, say you want to take down Atlanta or Austin. Like, don't say like, it was just so, I was like, come on, man. Like, you're like
New York. Yeah, New York is number 2, and they're not even close.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in LA's been like 3 and 4 for 20 years. And again, it's not like, it's just not be good at what you're good at. Like, be good at what you're good at. It. And to your point, like, be good at trying to figure out how to nurture the people that do come, right? And keep the talent that is there, as opposed to always just this silly kind of economic development chase mentality of like, we got to be 100%. Number 1, right? Yeah.
We're going to go out and get these major companies.
Yeah. I mean, I get, again, it's just, that's how Americans think about economic development. And we're not as innovative as we like to believe we are, when it comes to these types of things. Speaking of innovation and industry shifts, like, talk to me a little bit about the venture world that you're encountering now, right? Because I've watched it, especially in this last like 5 to 10 years, right? It seems like it's just morphed, and 2 things seem to be happening simultaneously. One, there was obviously kind of post 2018, 2019, kind of bubble-ish, 2020, 2021, 2022. There was like this open door that said emerging managers, right? New funds, like a breath of fresh air into the industry, from whether it be from Latino fund managers or younger fund managers or women fund managers, right? Or women Latino fund managers, or like any of the combinations of demographics. And it was hugely important. But at the same token, at the same time, the super funds, which weren't super funds 6 years ago, they were just really big venture funds. They were already signaling that they were on a trajectory to become kind of these mega things. Like, these were basically going to be like a big 5 consultancy married to like a private equity firm at a bank, right? And we're still going to call ourselves venture and like, sponsor tech weeks, but we're really not that anymore. We're basically competing with JP Morgan and Deloitte.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so this is, I'm squeezing 2 questions here together because I really just want to let you riff on it for a bit. But like, one, like, you are an emerging fund. You are one of those smaller funds, right? And fund 2 will be bigger, but it will still be smaller comparatively. And so I'm curious, like, today, 2026, I feel like the space for the smaller, newer funds to exist is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then separately, the people with the loudest microphones in the industry are basically just shouting loudly to everybody that their way is the only way. So
and I'm safe.
So 2 questions for you then, basically, is like, one, is your differentiation literally just your street hustle? Like, is that the way you set yourself apart? Is like, okay, you know what? They're too big and slow. They're literally not going to be on the ground in enough places 100%. Building real relationships. And then secondly, like, can you carve out a model in which, like, you too don't have to wind up someday, 10 years, 15 years from now, basically just becoming another bloated, oversized fund where you have no connection to the people? Can you do these 2 things at once?
I believe so. I think that it all, like how you said, the biggest differentiator is knowing the people. And that's how every great king has ever ruled, right? Everybody who creates their little ivory tower one day gets the guillotine. And this goes into like a few different things that I think about. So right now, this is a super hot take. Now, okay, there's a nuclear holocaust for emerging managers, especially like for emerging managers in general. Now, I don't think that this is totally, completely, 1,000% the worst thing ever. I think that there was a point in time when there was a bunch of emerging managers who shouldn't have been emerging managers. They have no idea what they're doing. Their heart's not in the right place. They see this shit because they see it on TV and they hear about it and all this other stuff. Like, we did this work for 6-7 years before we even thought about wanting to move into like, hey, let's start an accelerator and let's launch a fund, right? We did this because this is what we were passionate about. This is what our whole entire life was about. Like, we weren't just like, oh, I watched an episode of Silicon Valley and I want to start a fund, you know? And I think that there was a bunch of people just thinking that it was cool and sexy, and that's why they're trying to launch funds.
It became a career path. Right. It became
Yes.
like, I want to get a job. And that was befuddled me, because I was like, what? You don't like, no, you don't like, this isn't accounting or consulting. Like, you don't get a job in venture. Like, that's not right. Okay. All right.
And I think LPs look at GPs how we look at startups, right? Like, when I go invest into a startup, I'm just like, is this your magnum opus? Is this your life's work? Right. And like, great LPs, after a while, they're like, dude, there's no returns here. Your heart's not there. You're also doing some consulting work. You're also doing all this other stuff. Like, this isn't your life's work. Like, and that's why you see a bunch of people not re-ing up, not investing into emerging managers. And it kind of messes it up for other people who take it seriously and dedicate their whole entire life to it, like me.
Yeah.
Now, there's another part that I have to say. So I was having this conversation at dinner, and this guy was just like, yeah, but there's all these mega funds now. And he was just like, why even try and start a fund? You know, like all this other stuff. And, you know, like there's, like you said, there's smaller and smaller rooms for people like me.
Yeah. Come on, Justice. Like, just go get a job at Andreessen. Be the Justis Mendez division of Andreessen, right?
So I told him something so funny. I said, nations rise and fall. That doesn't mean you never start a new nation. Imagine. Out of all the beginning of time, all the nations that have came and rose and all this other stuff, that's like saying, okay, never start America. There's, you know, Rome already fell 350 years ago.
Yep.
Why start America?
Right.
So it's like, you have to have a vision for creating. And I think those are the people who end up becoming the outliers. They have a vision. They have a dream. They're something like, hey, I believe in this. I love when people start off.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Chisos Capital. Everyone knows that raising capital is hard. And frankly, finding the next pool of entrepreneurs to get access to as limited investors is sometimes impossible too. Do you have a big idea, a dream you're building, but you're struggling to find early funding? Well, Chisos is changing the game for founders, creators, athletes, and investors. Whether you're launching a startup, growing your creative brand, or training for the big leagues, Chisos backs you. Chisos uniquely invests up to $100,000 in people, not just products, whether they be entrepreneurs, creators, or even athletes. With their unique CISA model, convertible income share agreements, founders get flexible funding without giving up equity or ownership, and investors get attractive returns and great upside with less risk. Chisos works for both investors and the people bringing our world to life. If you're seeking access to a truly diverse pool of deals, or you're someone who feels overlooked by the VC game, Chisos is ready to back you. So apply now at chisos.io.
When people start off with, I believe, right? Instead of being just like, oh, I want to make money and that's going to be cool one day or something. No, they have a vision and a grand thesis for how the world should work. And they think that they're going to be able to change it. And they're so delusional that it's going to happen. Yeah. So on that tangent, yeah, I think that it's really important. I think that there's a way to obviously like have a large AUM while also like being able to help people out and really be like, have your ear to the ground. And it just,
maybe you get to a point at some point where you're like, I'm cool with us managing this $100 million fund, and we're creating returns for our investors, and we're creating exceptional value for our founders, our community, and our portfolio. Like, I don't need to have $1 billion fund.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think that things will continuously, I mean, if you just look at like trends over the past like 100 years, right? Like $100 million 100 years ago was a substantial amount of money. In 100 years, again, $100 million is going to be like $100,000. So like, obviously I need to be able to keep up with inflation.
Sure. And
I'm thinking like long-term about like, how can I have the resources to be able to really affect the world? But there's two different thoughts, right? There's people who, cause there is like a certain kind of like balance to it. There's people who want to allocate capital because they're focused on the 20. They're focused on the carry. They're focused on the performance.
Yep.
They only make money when their LPs make money. And then there's other people, they call them fee whores. All they want is they want more and more capital so they can get that 2% management fee each year. They want to stack it and stack it and stack it. There's no like process of being like, oh, I want to perform. And if I don't perform, it's like too big to fail at that point. They're just like, I'm the name brand.
They're banks. They're just money managers.
You're a money manager. Exactly. Yeah. Like I want to stay away from that. I want to always focus on like, how can I return capital to people? Because then not only mess it up for yourself, you mess it up for all the other people who want to be in the asset class.
Yeah.
Makes
sense.
I've met people who literally, they went to Gainesville, they raised a bunch of money, they left Gainesville, never talked to any of these people again. They all lost their capital. When I pitched my fund, they said, oh, the last guy fucking got me. Like I don't want to invest in venture again. And it messes it up for innovation, more importantly. It's not about us making money. It's about, here's the interesting statistics, right? Is that less than 3% of companies in the United States receive venture funding. Right? And that's the total amount of companies that receive venture funding. What would you say out of those companies that end up succeeding? 0.1%, 1% out of the 3%.
Right.
So then those numbers are even smaller. Now, if you look at that super small number, I haven't did the exact math, that makes up more than 50% of our country's GDP.
Sure. Right.
So it's like now you're stagnating innovation for the world and for our country. So it's just like, I take this stuff very seriously because it's people's lives.
No,
and people work very hard for this money. And I believe like, when I was growing up, I was so frustrated because I'm like, there is abundance of everything, but we're just not allocating it properly. We're not creating more. Like these are people's lives. There's kids that are living in gutters right now who need help.
We do not have a shortage of money problem.
Exactly. 100%. Right.
Everybody always believes that that's the case, but we do not have a shortage of money problem. As you said. I'm curious, do you think this is the last couple of kind of questions, a bit more personal, but you think your experiences, like your own life story, your lived experiences, they would say, helps you identify better, more like connect with, empathize with the first time founder of any age or stage or background, like the hustler, the gritty, like got to make this work. This is my dream. Do you feel like your own life experience makes this an easier experience for you?
Absolutely. I feel like it gives me a benefit in a lot of different ways. Not only understanding like the people that are building, but I understand the people who are purchasing, the people who are buying, the people who will affect, like even outside of that, the ripple effect that will continue to happen from what they're building.
Yeah.
And like, obviously you really want to focus on the founder and be like, hey, are you going to give up? Like, so a lot of times I'm trying to figure out like, what's the most difficult thing that they've been through? So like when I talk to a founder, everybody asks like, oh, what have you done that's great? What's your biggest accomplishment? Oh, what college did you go to? I don't care about any of that. What's the biggest thing that you've ever lost? What's the hardest thing you've ever been through? What's the largest problem you've ever solved? Like, I want to know what's your amount of stress that you could take?
Yeah.
Because like that's where it's make or break. Like when I started this with Pablo, like we sold our cars, I slept on couches, I got an apartment, I literally had no bed, I slept on the floor, I put a pillow, I put a hoodie and made it a pillow, I put my bath towel to help like make a little bit of a cushion. Then I finally was just like, okay, I got a couple dollars. I went on Craigslist. I found a mattress. The mattress is in an alleyway with a homeless dude, smelled like cat pee. I bleached it off. I got pink eye the next morning. Like, dude, nobody can say that I'm not going to win.
Right.
Like, I'm going to put it all on the line, and no matter what, I'm going to win.
Good for you.
That's the people I want to back.
No, I love that. And I would imagine those people, when they meet you and they have that inside them,
both ways,
right? They spot it in you as well, because it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's palpable. I through the screen here, I can hear it and feel it inside of you as a person. You're the kind of person that you want to like and you want to see succeed and you want to be around. So that's awesome. All right.
It's a really great quote that I always love. Yeah. You don't attract that what you want, you attract that what you are.
Dude, the number of philosophy and literature references that you're dropping today is fantastic. I'm loving this. As a guy who loves words and stories, like this is amazing. I love this. All right, so 2 last questions. One, because you can't have a podcast in 2026 and talk to someone in San Francisco and not use the words AI, right? I think there's like a legal requirement with the Podcasters Union that I have to say something with the words AI in them. I'm curious. If AI eventually, this is an assumption, we don't know if it winds up being true. Like if it eventually gives everyone access to all the information, all the expertise, and even maybe all the capital, Are relationships then, human relationships, less important, or are they more important?
More important. And analog is everything. Like, I think things are reverting back to analog.
Okay.
And I think that they've never been more important ever. And I actually wrote a manifesto back in 2016 called Hyper Future about how like AI and robotics will be able to bring this like abundance lifestyle, or it could like completely like destroy us if you don't build it right. But like, and after that, people will be able to focus on like what's important. And that's like going out, touching the grass and building these human to human connections and saying like, how can we build more of like a utopia? And it takes somebody to plant that vision for other people to try and work towards it. So I want to continuously talk about like this hyper future utopia where we can continuously just try and help people through the technology that we're building.
We seem as a society, we seem to be wrestling with the earliest stages of that discussion right now.
Yep.
Yeah. Like we seem to all agree like that would be nice, but we seem to have way more questions than answers when it comes to like, but actually, how does it get there?
Yeah.
Right? And then
100%.
what do we do to care for each other and societally care for us as a human race, like in between this journey and this point in that journey?
Whether it has to be UBI or anything else like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. Because it's going to be growing pains for sure.
No, yeah. I mean, nothing amazing in life transformationally happens without an immense amount of pain as well. We just don't like to talk about it. Silicon Valley especially doesn't like to talk about that part of it. So I'm glad that there's a Justis Mendez planted his ass right in the middle of Silicon Valley now, because you clearly think about the world a bit differently than all your neighbors do. So, all right, last question. This is just purely fun question. Take a breath. Think about this for a second. You've spent years creating all these rooms with ambitious people colliding. If you were going to have a 161 dinner and you could invite 3 people, living or dead, who would be at that table?
Yeah. So I would, number 1, Jesus Christ. Number 2, Ben Franklin. Number 3, Nikola Tesla. I would almost, it's tough to put in.
What do you want those three people talking about?
Yeah. So I think, okay, so this kind of comes back to the general direction of the conversation we've been having, right? So it's like, okay, you have to build the world's best technology ever, because that's what's going to create like all this opportunity for everybody, right? That's the Nikola Tesla. Then Benjamin Franklin, he's like, okay, how do we go out? How do we plan all this stuff, right? You need a roadmap. Like, how do we bring it all to market? How do we plan for it? How do we build the infrastructure, everything else? And then you always need a guide, right? You always need the
moral
person
compass.
that's a moral compass, and you always have to make sure that it's righteous and it helps people and it doesn't hurt people, and just think forward thinking. So, it's like kind of like the analogy of the hacker, the hustler, and the hipster. But, I would call Jesus a hipster.
Right. Yeah. I was like, we won't apply that to these 3 people in particular,
for
but
sure.
if they're paying attention, I'll tell you right now, I would love to turn that dinner into a podcast. That'd be an amazing conversation to watch that unfold, right? All right. So last question, closing segment. And you've been so gracious with your time. I really appreciate it. This has been incredible. I'm not at all surprised, as I said before. Jolene Vallejo introduced us, and Jolene is an incredible woman and incredibly plugged into the world that we all, that you're deeply involved in, that I'm kind of an observer of from the outside. And so I'm grateful for this introduction, and it has exceeded my expectations for positive energy and thoughtfulness and just a great conversation. So I'm really grateful. Last question. This is a bit more tactical, right? So this is like some maybe kind of, punchy, actionable couple of points on how people can do something. And my curiosity is, you're such a great relationship builder. You're so centered on community and helping others to build their community and tell their story. What are the 1 or 2 things that someone needs to do if they want to build a stronger network for themselves? If they maybe are like a bit more naturally introverted, or they're a bit like kind of afraid of traditional networking, like what are the 1 or 2 things that person today needs to do in the next couple of weeks or couple months to help themselves build a stronger network?
Give. I have this literally in my calendar about like how every day it goes off at 1 p.m. Find a couple people I can give to. So like, if you want to be the plug, if you want to be the one, you gotta be the one giving, right? Like, I remember I met one of my friends, his father was a very wealthy guy, and he said, Justice, he goes, you know how I made it here? I said, how? He said, I didn't make it with my palm to the sky. I made it with my palm to the ground. And he said, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. He said, when you're asking, where's your palm? When you're giving, where's your palm? So like people gravitate towards people who can help them. And I think that most people are always self-centered and like, how can I get something out of this relate? And people want to stay away from those people. They're like, everybody's trying to make it in this world. And if you could help somebody just even a little bit, you'll become just completely differentiated amongst all of your peers.
Love that.
So it's like find one or two people who you look up to and just reach out to them, be like, and that also helps if you're not a big networker and you're a little bit of an introvert. Cause like going out and meeting 1,000 people and being like, it's easier for somebody like me who I love people. And I'm just like, I get energy off of talking to people. I'll go out there, give a million cards and, info.
Yeah.
But if you're just like a little bit more introverted, just find one or two people who you think like you really look up to and you respect a lot and being like, hey, I've been seeing what you're doing. This is what I'm, good at. And I'd love to be able to be helpful and bring
how can
some
I
resources.
help you?
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. That is the perfect punchline to this, because I will tell you, God rest his soul, my dad had one kind of overarching philosophy in life that he then taught me as kind of the foundation of me and teaching me business 40 years ago almost. And it was give, ask. And he was just like, give, then give some more. And then you set up the relationship strong enough for you to be able to ask for the help that you need.
I love it.
So he would be proud of us having this conversation, and I'm sure he would love he would love that someone like you is out there in the world doing what you're doing, and that I got the pleasure to meet you. So thank you for that, man. This has been great. How can you're young, hip, cool guy, super connected on social media. OneSixOne's got an awesome website. So give us the details on how people can find you guys and follow you. Like, give us the websites, the socials, all that stuff, and we'll be sure to put them in the show notes so people can click through as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so website, social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then the website is spelled out OneSixOne, so 161.ventures or 161 Ventures. And then me personally, I'm on all social media with just my name, Justis Mendez, which is JUSTIS. So a little bit different.
Yeah,
but
memorable though.
Thank you. Yeah, you got to be different to be memorable.
Sometimes it's right in our name. I love it. No, this is awesome, man. I really do appreciate your time today, man. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rob. You're the best.
And as always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show is produced by our team at the Storytellers Company in Mexico City and Los Angeles. And you can always find, follow, subscribe, and share our show as found on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you find your favorite podcast by searching Entrepreneurial Thinkers with Rob Ryan. You can also follow along on our various social media platforms for clips and contents at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And if you'd like to connect with me, our host, you can find me just about anywhere on social under the handle I am Rob Ryan. Thanks, and have a great day.